My name is Nathaniel Holmes. I'm a former employee at Tenderloin Housing Clinic. I left the union in 2006. At that time, I was a program receptionist, and I was elected the shop steward for the housing department. Randy Shaw was the executive director at Tenderloin Housing Clinic. Tenderloin and other, after going through a few conversations with management of complaining about them, complaining to them about the way that they were treating the people of color, the workers that were in the housing department, they decided to give it a try. You know, the Human Resources Director did give him an opportunity to put in his request, his application, and I think she even went over one day. But that was the beginning for me. I think that was the first time that I really complained to management in a way like that, especially about racial discrimination. And that was when I would say that the retaliation started with me, because it first started with me. They wanted to transfer me out of the department that I was in. That's how it first started. Not only did they want to, they did it because after complaining about the way that they were doing things, the person that they hired, when she came in to work, she eventually got me removed by saying that I was creating a hostile work environment. So that led them to remove me from the housing department against the wishes of not only myself, but I went to my union. And the union, my union rep, Darcelon Paris, was, he didn't put up too much of a fight for it because he said that Randy was going to do what he wanted to do. Oh, he told me basically, you know, the whole thing was bogus. You know, the reason I was fired was because we had union members had circulated a letter about Mr. Shaw's totally just ignoring grievances, transferring workers, and at the same time he was promoting a book about Cesar Chavez. So we went over to speak to Local 87. He was going to be, he had email workers about him promoting this book at Local 87. The email mentioned about, and he was inviting everyone to come out. This was workers, you know. So union members discussed this in our meeting. Some of the persons that I guess felt allegiance to him didn't want to do it, but most of the union members wanted to pursue it because we was trying to improve our conditions in the workplace. So we went and we spoke to Olga Miranda, I think, at Local 87. And Olga mentioned that if we could show her a letter where other union members, how they thought about Mr. Shaw. She just didn't want to hear it from 2 or 3 members, but where other members thought about what they thought about Mr. Shaw, she would present this letter in, even because we was reaching out to her for her assistance. You know, it was more or less kind of like a concerted effort on our part to get mutual aid from our sister union. So she mentioned that she would bring this up to him if we would just show her or give her a letter or a petition with a list of things that we was concerned about. So that happened, and we did that. We got the letter, we circulated the letter, myself and other union members. Elizabeth Alexander was one of the persons that was on there. She was our cope worker, you know. She signed, as well as 50 other persons. We had about 52 members that signed this letter, that's helped circulate it, that was singled out for discipline and was fired. At that time, but this was before I was even fired, when they started the investigation about, when I was filing the grievance, I had a little situation to come up when I went over to file this grievance for one of my co-workers. First, we ran into one of our union persons on the front desk. When I went over to present the grievance, as we normally would do, he told me that we have a different way that we're doing this now. And that was a surprise to me because we hadn't received any memo about we were going to do grievances another way. So he wanted me to see the human resources person. So I said, okay, may I see her? So she wasn't in, and he asked me to come back in about 10-15 minutes. So I did. 15 minutes later, I went over to see her, and when I spoke to her, her name was Janie Lara. Janie mentioned to me that Darcelyn Parris had told her that if she would sign the grievance that we would bring over, it was like they was admitting guilt. And I said, Janie, this is the first time I ever heard anything like that, And she told me, well, this is what Doss told me, and she wasn't signing any grievance. So I said, okay. And then I found out later that Darcelyn Parris was coming over that same day within the next hour to have a meeting with her. So I decided that I would wait since she wouldn't take the grievance from me. So when Doss come in, I asked Darcelyn Parris about the grievance and I told him about what Janie had mentioned to me, and he said no, I hadn't told Janie no such thing. So I was asking him, I said, well, look, I need to get back to work, so could you please come and help me to get this grievance signed so I could get back to my duty. So he told me that he would. And it was taking him a few minutes to go about doing this. So I asked him, said, Doss, would you please? And so he left from talking to me and went over and started talking to another gentleman, Kenneth Degman, the union rep that worked there. And so they went over to themselves and was over laughing and looking back at me. And I just referred to it. I said, you know what, man? I said, those actions that you all are doing, I said, to me, I said, it's very racist. I said, and I really don't appreciate it. And I left, So the next thing I know is that they're so upset that I've told them that their feelings are so hurt that I referred to that action as being racist. It was something that they never had done. We all union brothers, and I'm trying to file a grievance and get the grievance filed and go back to my work site, and here they are over there. It's funny to them because I guess maybe they may know more than what I know or know about it. So I went on and I left. Went back to my work site. Next thing I know, we had our union meeting that night. And it was kind of heated, because it was still upset because of how they all blamed me for upsetting them.
Who blamed them?
Kenneth Degman for one, and him and Doss was had got to be pretty close friends, I would say. And so it was like Nate Holmes had done something just real bad. A couple of days, I went into work. Next thing I know, about 30 minutes of being in the work, here comes the HR director, along with James Holland, who was one of the property supervisor, come in, and Janie gave me a letter saying that I was to have no contact with any workers, that I was going on administrative leave, and if I would contact any workers or have anything to say to them, further discipline would come down. I left the work site. They escorted me off the work site, and I spoke up about racial conditions at Tenderloin Housing Clinic. It was just Jim Crow again, slapped, put to you. Then we had these other pretenders, I'll call them, that came in that was going to bring about change. And one of those persons was Roxanne Sanchez, who started to work after I was fired at Tenderloin Housing. And Roxanne knew about my case starting back from 2007. She knew about it because we talked over the phone. You know, we conversed over it. She would give me little pointers about what to do and about how things was going to get better and what she was going to come. She was, I think at the time, she was working from BART. She had information as to what my situation was about. Roxanne even come by one day when I was having a protest outside of 126 Hyde Street, and she took another route. Instead of coming over and supporting, she took another route, but that was up to her.
She had to be working at that job in order to run in the election, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, you know, I know very little about that because she was hired after I was fired. You know, but I would meet her at union meetings when we would go over for union meetings, and she knew about my had an ongoing case. So after they elected her, and then she was elected president, and Elizabeth Alexander was the political education person for them. You know, she beat us. You know, a bunch of people that I found out later on that was just pretenders. They were, you know, not true blue union reps. So they had the power. You know, but they didn't want to really do anything with it, or didn't know. I think what it is, it's a lack of their understanding what's really going on inside with the workers in the workplace, and really addressing matters in the workplace. You know, they're so concerned about what's going on at City Hall until they dumbfounded as to how to really represent a person. They really representing themselves, and workers thinking that they have someone there because they come on with the rhetoric about what they're going to do for union members, and it's sickening. It's so disheartening for people like them, along with Mr. Bradshaw, who has come here to my house telling me he was going to help me if that was the last thing he would do. And he came over here 1 or 2 times, and only to tell me that Randy Shaw really don't like you. He got it in for you, and he don't want you back. You know. So I was just, you know, I really didn't expect too much from them anyway. You know, because you know how you could feel people, and my natural gut feeling toward him and toward Roxanne, toward Elizabeth Alexander. You know, after them telling me, especially Elizabeth Alexander, she had first-hand information that she came. I didn't ask her for this. She had some racist comments that had come out of Randy Shaw's mouth, and that if I needed her to come to my trial, or for her to make a statement, she would do this. I called Elizabeth up only for her not to answer my call, and then when she finally did answer it, she told me that she would get back to me. Never did get back to me. I told her we had a few days to get the statements in. Never did. So, you know, what are you to expect when you really need a person, and a person, you know, you break bread with them, you invite them into your home, and then they still playing games with your life? You know, just be upfront with them. Let them know that I'm not going to do it. You know, just be upfront. You know, you don't have to come with that fake stuff, but you find out that these people, it's just like the old South, you know, with people where they had Jim Crow, you know. Now, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in politics. Like I said, just you know, they just treat folks, especially people of color. I guess they just think that they can just do us any kind of way, and it's disheartening because these are the people that that elect you to do the people's work, and you're failing. But yet still you go on and you be on all these national programs. I've listened to it the other day on Democracy Now, talking about some stuff they're doing in Oakland, but they can't do for people in the workplace. You know, I was in good standings when union dues paid. You know, they was taking it out of my check. You know, I hadn't done anything wrong. Everything was all about union activity, and I would encourage anyone that's going through it not to be silent, because that's the only way that we're going to make progress. You know. And San Francisco seemed to be a place where you just listen to 1 or 2 little so-called prominent persons or political heads. You know, everything is just coming from them. You know, and it's sad. But be a fighter. But as far as Elizabeth Alexander and Roxanne Sanchez, those persons, I have Larry Bradshaw, you know, I have no faith in them. You know, I think that they should just step down just out of a personal dignity just for themselves and their own families, because, you know, it's a shame that they're in positions like they are and not being true fighters. You know, they're grandstanders. That's what they are. You know, like the grandstand.